This was the first book I learned to read. As a young kid, that could probably be one of the most exciting moments you'll ever have in your lifetime. It sparked my interest to read more and more books. My dad was always really good about reading to my brother and I when we were little. We always picked out the same few books because he would read them in a funny manner. In the story No David, whenever the parents would yell No David, he would yell it too, but in a goofy way. Whenever we picked out the book open wide, he would come up with a voice for every character. This series was something my brother and I read together. I would read most of the book to him, and then he would read a little bit to me since he was still learning to read. This book was really funny to both my brother and I. When I was little, this book convinced me that dogs could talk if they ate alphabet soup. Of course, I just had to test out that theory. I would feed my dogs the soup, hoping that Junie B. Jones was by far my favorite series of books to read. When I was younger, my grandma and I would read together while my parents were at work. This book was a gift to me from AT&T Pioneers Kansas City Mix Club. My grandpa worked there at the time, and so they made me a book that was all about me. I like to read this book because no one else had the same book. It is interesting to look back and see what I was interested in when I was that little. This book put me through an emotional roller coaster. I loved dogs, and I loved reading about dogs. But this book had a very sad ending that made me never want to read another dog book again. I wouldn't recommend reading this book unless you like to cry. I had to read this book in high school. I already didn't like to read books that were forced in high school, but this one was one of the more painful ones to read. It had an underlying meaning that didn't make sense to me, and the book in general was just weird.
Created using Powtoon.